Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I'm with a super cool guy, honestly, one of the nicest guys I've spoken to, and a tremendous guitar player, incredibly successful career with Steve Mazur, who's the lead guitar player from Our Lady Peace. If you don't know the band, and if you do, let me tell you a little bit about them. They've sold several million albums worldwide. They've won 4 Juno Awards. This is up in Canada. And they won 10 Much Music Video Awards, the most MMVAs ever awarded to any artist or group. Steve's from Port Huron, Michigan, and he grew up in Richmond, Michigan. Started taking guitar lessons at age 7. Got interested in recording by making recordings with friends on a 4-track recorder he had. Played in cover bands in high school, and the singer of his band was the new Stone Temple Pilots vocalist, Jeff Gutt. It's funny, I saw them open recently it was them, The Cult, and Bush.
Yeah, I saw that tour they had going. Yeah,
it was a real good show. And Steve attended Berklee College in Boston, of course, after high school. He moved to LA in 2001 after graduating Berklee. He got an audition with Our Lady Peace in December of that same year, and he joined 4 months later in April. Around 2005, he started playing on TV scores with a composer friend of his called Gabriel Mann, and Gabriel's band, they played together when Steve first moved to LA. He does a lot of TV show scores that he's played on, and some of them are Modern Family, Rectify, Rules of Engagement, which he also composed that as well, Dawn of the Croods, Angel from Hell, Rosewood, Biz Aardvark, Prince of Persia. I know that show. That's a reality show, right?
Prince of Persia.
Is it?
That's actually a brand new show. It's a kids show.
Oh, I thought my wife watches something with these. I don't know, something Persia. I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't watch much TV, Steve. Sorry. Like none almost. School of Rock, Marry Me, The Three Caballeros, Trophy Wife, and A Million Little Things. The films he's done are Wanted, Humor Me, Katy Perry, Part of Me, and Barbie movies. Our Lady Peace records that Steve's been a part of, including playing and writing, have been the last 5: Gravity, Healthy and Paranoid Times, Burn, Burn, Curve, and Somethingness. He's done hundreds of live concerts with Our Lady Peace throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe. They've opened up for the Stones, Guns N' Roses, and Bryan Adams. And again, one of the nicest guys I've spoken to. Steve, thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, man, glad to be here. Thank you. I listened to a couple of them, and I think you got a great show here, for real.
Thank you, man.
Different format. It's unique, and in this day and age, man, unique is something not easy to come by and something important. So glad you're doing it.
Well, man, thank you so much. I'm always awkward taking compliments. I'm working on that.
By the way, I thought it was great that it went right from the introduction went right from Barbie movies to Our Lady Peace. I like that.
Man, you started playing at 7. That's really young. Did you have a musical family or?
Actually, no, not really. It was just one of those things where my mom literally was like, I have two sisters and 2 stepsisters, but I didn't grow up with my stepsisters. And so my mom was like, hey, we're going to have I had one older sister, one younger sister. I do have one older, one younger. And she said, we're going to have your sisters start taking piano lessons. And how about we have you take guitar lessons instead of piano? She just was trying to get us involved in things and being a good mom. And okay, sure, whatever. I didn't really have any thoughts about it. I wasn't really that into music at the time or anything like that.
God, isn't that weird how that shit works?
It's pretty crazy, like how it wasn't even a choice of mine or anything. I was interested. And I actually wasn't interested for probably 2 or 3 years. And my poor teacher had to sit there while I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. And I was more concerned. I can remember playing football out in the front yard with my neighbor and my mom, hey, come on, we got to go to guitar lessons. And me being like, come on. And it's interesting that then one day, my guitar teacher walked into, they had these ensembles at the store that you could be part of where you play with other people. And one day he walks in, he starts playing the riff to La Bamba, and which at the time, that remake of La Bamba was big in the, late 80s or mid 80s. And I remember my eyes just like opened super wide. And I was just like, how did you do that? What, you just played the riff to La Bamba? That's my favorite song. He's like, oh yeah, check it out. You just go like this. Da, 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 da. I think at that point he was like a young guy just starting teaching. He was cautious to do everything by the book, this and that, Mel Bay books and stuff.
Sure.
But once he did that, and once I made the connection that I could play songs on my guitar that I heard on the radio, that's when I was maybe like 9 years old, 10. That's when the wheels started spinning. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when he made it fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, I couldn't really relate to it much. It was more like Mary Had a Little Lamb kind of stuff. And, but in some ways, I think that was good because I got some background into like reading, and, there was a little bit of discipline, maybe sort of like instilled up to that point. Then once the part came in where it was something I really wanted to do, although there wasn't a whole lot of discipline, I felt bad for the guy.
That's great. It's just amazing though, how like that your mom basically changed your life.
Yeah, boy, and I can remember sitting there going to get the guitar the first day, walking in the store, and it's like, okay, this is the guitar I'm going to play. And I've actually never thought about that. I should thank her again for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's why. Well, I always look at that because I'm always trying to figure out how did people get from here to there, because I could learn something, or it inspires me, or it's just positive shit, and it's always good. I always like to try to immerse myself in that anyway, So that's just a cool thing to hear. So it's always fascinating to me, like how that somebody I talked to yesterday or the day before, it was something. It was Lyle Workman. Do you know Lyle?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about movie scores.
Yeah, I'm a huge Jellyfish fan too.
Right.
He was on that record. Yeah.
He's on their second record. And the reason why he got into movie scoring in the first place is fucking wild. He like met somebody, and he did like a track on a jingle.
Okay.
And he knew he was meeting the guy, and so the night before he was like putting together a CD of stuff, just in case there was any other opportunities. And he gave it to the guy. He goes, hey, here's this little CD of my work. If you get a chance to listen to it, let me know what you think. Well, the guy listened to it and he loved it. And then he hired him to do like sound. He hired him. He was a guy with Universal, and he got him in. And then he did like one or two independent films. And then the next thing he got with Judd Apatow. And so
a lot of movies and stuff. I think,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So, but if he hadn't have handed the guy that CD, he wouldn't,
Man, I gotta say, like, it's so weird. People always say, "Oh, it's it's who you know," and this and that, and we've all heard that, and it's cliche. But man, in my personal experience and things I've heard like that, it's just always pretty random stuff.
Yeah,
it's like usually if you can be prepared and be on top of it, that definitely is something that helps and is kind of a requirement. But then after that, it's just like kind of like anything in life. I think the more you put yourself out there and being prepared, and then man, it seems like so many times just random stuff like that.
Yeah. It's really cool to dig into that. It's just serendipity is a funny thing, how it intersects with your life, I find.
Yeah. And it's funny how like, you feel like you think you can like pick a path. Oh, I want to do this and do this, but it's never going to go exactly that way.
No.
Which is a good thing. It's like it always ends up taking some bend, and you end up somewhere, and it was somewhere you didn't expect to be, but you actually find out that it's awesome.
It's just where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, totally.
Very cool, man. When you were studying as a kid, forget about studying, what did you like playing once you figured out that, hey, I could do cool stuff with my, by the way, what kind of guitar was it that you had, your first guitar?
Oh man, it was just some small acoustic. I don't have it anymore. Some small acoustic that I think I dropped and broke. And but I can remember my first electric guitar, which was I broke my acoustic guitar, and maybe it was kind of another serendipitous thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of unrepairable. And then it was kind of, the conversation of, well, what about if we try electric then, instead of getting another acoustic? And that definitely did something, obviously, too. and that was a black Yamaha, like maybe RGX 112 or something, pickup single kind of Strat kind of guitar, and I still have that.
That's cool. A lot of people start on a Yamaha, funny enough. I guess it was probably price driven and quality, for the quality of the price that you're getting, it was probably a good value.
Maybe so, yeah.
That's cool, man.
And I still have that one. And like a lot of people, I've desecrated it. It was black. I've stripped off the finish, and at one point and stuff.
That's cool, man.
I think as a matter of fact, I wanted it to look more like Nuno Betancourt's guitar from Extreme. God, so I actually took, he had all those wood grain guitars. So I think that's why I sat there for 3 months with sandpaper trying to get the black stuff off instead of practicing,
That's so fun. I want to hear something really weird.
Yeah.
5 minutes before we got on this call, I was looking up Nuno Betancourt because I've had a lot of requests to get him on the show.
Oh, no kidding.
5 minutes. That is very creepy. Yeah, yeah.
They were a band I was really into.
Extreme. Yeah. Extreme. Really good band. What kind of music did you play as a kid in your cover bands?
Let's see. In the cover bands I was in high school, it's kind of weird for me. I didn't really grow up being in a lot of original bands. We just, I think there was this whole thing of I so much didn't want to have a normal job. So I was very concerned kind of early on about being able to make money playing music because I didn't want to have
So you knew you wanted to do that right away?
Yeah, definitely. I think
that's great.
Like my guitar teacher, Kevin, growing up, I just kind of wanted to be like him. He taught guitar and played in bands. And I was like, shit, this is awesome. I just want to do this. So I wanted to make sure I could just do that. And so in high school, it's funny. I was actually in a band at first that was like a wedding cover band. Mm-hmm. I played weddings. We had matching suits and stuff. There's some evidence out there that exists. Never find it. But then after that, somewhere in high school, then we started more of a rock cover band. And at that point, that's what people were doing in bars. And this was mid 90s. So we were just doing whatever was on the radio. Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, whatever was on the radio. And we actually did some stuff we liked, though. We actually did a few Pantera covers because we actually used to play.
It's pretty difficult. Holy shit.
Yeah, but I think that's something people liked about us because we were like 4 kids, but we were really trying to nail whatever we were doing. Mm. And we actually used to play this. And one of the guys was Jeff Goot, who you mentioned earlier, who's now in STP. And so he was a good singer. And I think people were like, who are these kids up there? They kind of half thought it was funny. And the main place we used to play was this biker bar in Port Huron, Michigan. And so these dudes wanted to hear Pantera and stuff. And the owner was kind of weird because there would be fights and stuff. So he would literally tell us only 2 Pantera songs a night kind of thing. And so
was Pantera songs the catalyst for fighting?
I think it was Pantera, and there were a couple other songs. I think "Man in the Box" we used to play every night, and he was like, you gotta
Alice in Chains,
that "Man in the Box." Don't rival up these guys. Don't play it too late when they're drunk.
That's so funny. You're talking about Alice in Chains song.
Yeah.
I love that. That's their first album. I think that was great, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Great song.
So it's interesting too. Okay, it wasn't an original band, this and that, and there's we did some original things when I was a kid too, but. I'll tell you what, you can you learn a lot from doing that stuff when you're trying to get tones and parts, as we kind of got a kick out of trying to make it as much like the records as possible. And so, you can learn a lot.
That's fair. Hey, man, I guarantee there are kids out there today imitating your lines, doing the same thing you're doing. It's just how it goes, man.
And actually, as a side note, it was kind of interesting. Jeff Goot, who's now singing with Stone Temple Pilots. It's funny that we used to do a lot of Stone Temple Pilots songs back then.
And he even
told me that there's a song of theirs called "Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart," I think it's called. And there's a lot of lyrics, and they go by really fast. And he told me that when he went in and auditioned for them, he called that song out right away, and they were kind of like, "Shit, this guy's going to try to do this song. It's one of the hardest songs." But he said it wasn't hard for him because we played it 100 times, when we were kids. So you get that muscle memory. It was kind of in there. So
that's very cool, man.
It paid off. Yeah.
What a great story. I had another story like that recently. I interviewed John Levin from Dokken.
Oh, right on.
He grew up he goes, I grew up playing George Lynch. And now I've got his job, basically. It's who the hell would have ever, thought of that, So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool, man.
Awesome.
So you went to Berklee. You were like in the middle of the country. I was curious, what made you pick going there? There's like a lot of schools much closer.
Yeah, well, I was definitely I was looking at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, MI, even GIT, and then also Berklee. And man, this is gonna sound to be totally honest with you, I was sort of just I've always just loved playing guitar and practicing guitar. That to me it was like, this is so lame, but MI was like a 1-year program. And Berklee's like this 4-year program. And I was like, shit, if I can avoid responsibility and life decisions for longer,
good for you,
and sit and practice longer, I'll take that one actually.
Yeah.
And honestly too, I think my mom liked the idea of it being, you could actually get a degree from there if you wanted, a little more of a proper kind of school. I think she liked the idea of that. And then, the summer before my senior year of high school, I went there and did like a 1-week guitar program. And then I really fell in love with it, just the whole vibe of everything. And when I came back, I think my mom saw how excited I was and how much I liked it. And yeah, that was the deal pretty much. Because I wasn't, Berklee's kind of, its foundation is a jazz school.
Yes.
And I did not grow up being a jazz guy at all. But it has a lot of other contemporary stuff as well. And it's getting more and more like that all the time. So kind of all those reasons.
Very cool. Did you go to school with any guys that have a career going now that you were friends with back then?
Oh man. Yeah. Especially the time I was there was a pretty cool time. There were a lot of dudes that have done a lot of stuff. A buddy of mine, Matt Mangano, is now the bass player in Charlie Daniels band.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was really good buddies. I actually knew John Mayer a little bit when I was there. He would come to visit. He had already dropped out of school, but he was buddies with this guy Matt and stuff. And so John has obviously done well. And oh man, I wish I would have thought about this a little bit more. Yeah, a lot of dudes are doing stuff. I know that this guy Mike has been playing with Miley Cyrus for a long time, keyboard player. Man, I'm having a brain fart right now.
No, it's all good. That's like one of those questions you got to bust out the yearbook or something like that. I was just curious. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Pretty awesome, though. I got to say, like for the people I went to school with and what a lot of them ended up doing, it's just like, all right, hell yeah, man. We've all done okay, Yeah,
that's cool, man. Really, and I don't think there's anything wrong with. I actually think there's an awareness there that I wish I would have had at that age. Like when you said, "Hey, I want to do this because I could avoid." I could play guitar more. I don't have to get into the work. There's kind of like, at least you're aware of what you wanted to do. I think I didn't certainly have that awareness when I was that age. I was on autopilot with like almost anything. So I think it's kind of, but the fact that you thought about it, it's great, to be honest with you.
Oh, thanks, man. I just felt, like even when I was there, it seemed like a lot of the other guys there, and I kind of freaked out about this my last year there. A lot of the guys there even were ambitious and had drive and they had a plan. And I was just like, yeah, I just want to play guitar. And I guess when I'm done with this, I'll go home. And I remember very specifically, someone asked me, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I think I'll go home, and start teaching guitar lessons and stuff. And there was a friend of mine, this guy, Jason Warmer, who's actually a great engineer now, works with, I can't think of his name right now, but he was like, well, dude, why don't you try to do more? Why don't you try to go somewhere? And it hadn't dawned on me till then. And I was just so much less ambitious than a lot of guys there. But I think it all kind of evens out eventually.
So then you moved out to LA. What prompted you to do that? That's a big move.
Well, and that's funny. That's kind of a good segue. That was kind of part of it. Like my last year of, Berklee, everyone was kind of going to LA or going to Nashville and this and that. And I kind of panicked, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can go there and make stuff work, but everyone else was kind of doing that stuff. And my buddy Jason, like I said, was one guy who said, hey man, why don't you think about doing something else? You can go back to Michigan and teach guitar, later if you want or something. And so LA definitely had a lot of stuff that attracted me. I've always kind of been interested in the session thing, like I've actually always kind of been interested in like TV and movie, guys like Tommy Tedesco. So there was a lot of that here. And then also it's, kind of the center for auditioning for touring bands and stuff like that. So, so I graduated Berklee and then still kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. Went home for about 6 months to Michigan and was just kind of working in the guitar store, trying to figure it out. And then I just went to LA to visit, to check it out for like a week. And I was there for about a week and saw some stuff and was kind of scared, but stayed another week and saw some more stuff. And so that's something else I got to say. People say, hey, that was really courageous of you to move to LA and this and that. To be honest with you, I don't feel like it was, because that's another thing about Berklee. I felt like the second I got to LA, I instantly knew like 30 people that I had gone to school with.
That's great.
You literally like call up this guy, hey man, I'm here, I want to do lunch. Call up another guy, hey, I'm here, this and that. So when I was there even visiting, I saw how many people were there that I went to school with. That made me feel better. And then while I was there, LA too is very easy to fall in love with, just the way, a kid from Michigan, I'm sitting in Griffith Park and there's like aloes and shit growing and there's mountains and stuff. And I remember thinking, if I come here for a year and even if I'm waiting tables, but if I can come and hang out up here in Griffith Park like 1 or 2 times a week and after a year it doesn't work out, that's cool. And I got to say too, I have very supporting parents. My mom said, if you're out there and it doesn't work out, you can always come home. Nothing's written in stone. And I feel like a lot of people's parents don't take that opinion. They're like, you're going to move out there and you better, if you're going to go out there, you better make it. And if not, you're like wasting time. And that was totally opposite of what like the feedback and encouragement I got from parents, which is, invaluable. And I kind of put no expectations and no pressure on myself and just kind of said, all right, I'm going to move out here and see how it goes. And like I said, then when I moved out there, when I actually did move out there, I just started calling around people I knew, and it was instantly like, oh, hey, this person's looking for a guitar player. Hey, I know this person. And it wasn't like it was hard to meet people, like the way people say sometimes, oh, that was really courageous. It was almost kind of like I was back at music school again in a way, except you got to find a way to make money.
No, but the courageous part is you actually did it. The execution is we just talked about that before the call, execution is the tough part of everything, man. Like talking about it and like, hey, this is comfortable, but you actually did it. You packed all your shit and you drove out or however you flew out or whatever.
I guess, well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
And it's funny how I know you and I have talked about a couple things like this when you talk about what motivates people. And I don't know, people say, okay, are you motivated by, fear of something or success? Like what motivates you?
Right.
I don't know if it's a negative thing to say, but I feel like a lot of times regret is something that really motivates me. I don't want to have regrets.
Yeah.
So that was almost kind of like the gnawing feeling of, I know that, okay, the longer I stay in Michigan, the harder it's going to be to go, this and that. And it was almost more that feeling of not wanting to regret something, that it almost seemed to me like I didn't have a choice at that point.
It's funny. I'm motivated like that as well. I never want to have any regrets. I don't care about fucking up. I've fucked up so many times. It's like, that's like, there's very few fuck ups you can do that actually like hurt you. I mean, like, that you can't come back from, especially in this country,
It's true.
So, yeah. I mean, like, I don't care about that, but yeah, I'm the same. I don't want to have regrets. It's always,
yeah. When you taste that feeling of regret a couple times, that's a pretty bitter feeling, one I don't really care to revisit. And some people would say, oh, that's a negative motivation, but I don't know. It is what
I don't think so. I think it's like positive. Like, I think anytime you do anything, it's positive. I don't see how motivation could be negative at all. Your reasoning is negative. If you're doing something, to me, it's positive. I think it's like shit. Getting someone to do something is hard as hell. Whatever way you got to get them to do it, that's like great.
That's true. Anytime you take action, it's pretty much could be classified as positive, probably. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, to me, it's positive. Even if someone, like I said, you always give them credit. Say, hey, man, at least they tried. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Versus,
thanks, man.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
I feel a little bit less like a dark human being now from our talk.
Oh,
right
dude, no, man, that's really positive. How the hell, you can't fault somebody for doing something, whatever the reason is, unless it was like, well, I was hoping to murder somebody accidentally. I mean, like absent like some ill will like that. It's all great. Doing shit is great.
I was hoping to move to LA and conquer all these things so I could have slaves or something.
Yeah,
like that.
right. Yeah, that's a bit of a dark.
I guess
that's a bit of a dark motivator, but whatever. But yeah, man, that's good. I'm glad you did. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had a friend who, the drummer in the bands that we had growing up, is my friend John Hodder. he was a couple years older than us, and he had moved out to LA and went to MI for drums.
Okay.
And I remember him telling me like that was one of the biggest reasons he didn't stay, because we were still in high school. He was older than us. Is that he had trouble meeting people. And so I felt so fortunate that I never, because I'm not a great networker at all. Like I'm brutal. And, I'm introverted. I'm not good at that stuff. But it was like, that was never even a question, just because I landed, there were literally like 30 people I knew. So I realized how valuable that was. That was literally the whole reason why he didn't pretty much stay, is because he had trouble meeting people, trouble making connections. And so that is a nice part about something like a music school. Yeah.
Yeah. Griffith Park. Do you still go?
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, I have other spots now. I live near Onion Canyon, which I can walk to. So, man, that is one thing about LA. Yeah, it's a lot of options. It's pretty nice. That's
cool, man. That's what everybody tells you. They go out there for the wet. I mean, I've talked to a lot of guys that are from the Northeast even, and they're like, man, once I came out here, like it's sunny. It's like beautiful. There's no way I would ever live anywhere else. You know?
It's funny. You're from New York. I'm from Michigan. There's a similar thing where things are pretty flat, this and that. There's trees everywhere, which is great. But you move out here and there's like mountains right there. And and you can drive for one thing that I was fascinated about, you drive 2 hours east of LA and you're in the middle of the desert and it's like boon and there's nothing. And I know some people be like, who gives a shit? But to me, I love it out there. And I was like, that was another thing. I'm like, if I live here and every weekend, if I want, I can drive 2 hours and be out here in the middle of nowhere. For Midwestern or East Coast kids, it's,
it's really cool.
But it's unique.
Well, especially like I'm in Florida now. It's all, it's flat as hell, swamp, and it's hot. It's like, it's October 20th today. We're doing this interview. And I remember I took my wife, we drove in the cars today and it was 91. I mean, that's ridiculous and humid. It's ridiculous, man. So I appreciate anybody going to LA for the nice weather, because I wish we had some of it, man.
It's pretty, yeah. And it's interesting too. Like, I don't know if it's another weird psyche thing, but it literally is sunny 9 out of 10 days, probably 19 out of 20. It's crazy. Great. I've been here for 17 years now, and I've still never gotten sick of it. It's like if you wake up and you go outside and sun's out, it's kind of like you wake up and you're like, oh God, wretched existence. No,
it's addictive, because when you don't have it, it's like depressing.
Yeah. And so I know I feel like some people maybe look at you and are like, so is that a little bit weird that you like have that every day? And, I still get to Michigan and Canada, so I still see some seasons, but I got to say, man, it definitely can give you a little lift up when you don't have it. And some people I know don't like it. They're like, yeah, this is a little too homogenous, but I don't know. I haven't gotten sick of it yet.
No, Sunshine is awesome. I agree, man. Hey, so Our Lady Peace is a Canadian band. I was curious how you got hooked up with them, and also, what was the audition and the follow-up process like? Because I got to believe there was like a shit ton of people auditioning for that slot.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and like we were talking about, pretty random too. I feel like no matter how much you prepare, how good you are, there's always an element of luck for sure. I feel like with anything, and so. I'll try not to make this too long of a story. Basically, I was here for about 6 months or so and trying to do auditions and call, around, see where there were auditions, this and that. And there's this guy who maybe you've heard his name from other guys you've interviewed, Barry Squire.
Yeah, he's the Henry Kissinger of networking down for musicians.
He's like this guy that would hook up if an artist was looking for a band. They would contact him. So
is he still around, that guy?
He is. I think he either has some different position now, or he actually turned, because that was actually a side thing he did. I think he was an A&R guy, or he turned the side thing of hooking people up. It might actually be his main thing now. See, I feel so spoiled that I'm so lucky I don't even know, because I haven't had to call him for a while.
I'm gonna get this guy on my show, because he's got to have like 1,000,001 stories.
Oh man, he's got to. Yeah, that dude's got to have some stories. So again, I was saying I'm terrible at networking and this and that. I kind of just want to hang and play guitar, but I was calling him, and he hooked me up with this thing. He said, "Okay, there is this guy. He's an English artist." He has a record deal, and he wants to have a band to tour with, but for now he wants to have a band where he can bring in songs of his these writing and work on with a band and rehearse with a band. And they're looking for, a guitar player, and it would be like, kind of a 5-day a week kind of thing, whatever. So I said, okay, cool. So they sent me the music and I started learning it. It was interesting. This guy was hooked up through this other dude. I can't think of what the song is. That there was some guy had a really well-known song, and he's the guy that got this guy in. Anyways, so this guy had a deal, and his name was Adam. So they sent me some of the music. The music was kind of like pretty eclectic, kind of all over the place. So I'm learning the tunes. And they said, okay, hey, we want you to come over and do this audition. It wasn't like a cattle call thing. I said, okay. So we set up one day, and then they call and said, oh, hey, we can't do it. And, when you're preparing for an audition, you're kind of, you're nerve wracking, you're cramming and this and that.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted it just to be over with. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They said, oh, actually, can't do it this day. And I was like, okay, that's cool. They said, how about this day? Or let us get back to you. So, a few days later, they got back to me. How about this day? Okay, cool. When in my head, I'm kind of going like, I got to prepare and cram all over again. I mean, well, poor me. So then.
No, but it's stressful. It's not the prep. It's like, shit, I got to go through the anxiety of having to, critique myself. And I got this wrong and I got this right. And man, I hope they don't ask me to do this song, or I hope I have a good drummer. That's all the other peripheral shit. I totally get it, man.
And again, the regret thing. Did I do everything I could have done?
Yeah.
Full cloud, which can be motivating. So then that day before that, they call and they said, hey, you know what? They actually can't do it tomorrow now.
Oh my God.
We can't do it for until maybe a week or so from now. And I'm kind of like, okay, cool, this and that. And so anyways, I kind of at that point was kind of like, man, this sounds a little flaky. Like, what's even going on here? I don't know about this. So anyways, they call back a week later. Hey, can you come do it in a couple days? Okay, cool. And again, I'm kind of going, okay, I should really try to do my best here, because that is something that, I feel like, whatever you're doing, try to do your best, because you never know. So I prepared this and that. So sure enough, I show up at this thing, come in and play, and they were into it. And they were like, hey, do you want to do this thing? Okay. So basically, it was this thing where he was getting ready to put out a record. He's writing songs, wanted a band to work on the songs with him. So they were like, hey, this actually is a 5-day-a-week thing. We come here, we rehearse for a few hours every afternoon, and we pay you this amount of money. And it was like, oh, shit, I could actually stop teaching. I got
a real gig.
I could actually stop teaching guitar lessons and do this. Okay, cool. So we started doing that. I kept teaching lessons and stuff. Went on for maybe 2 or 3 months, but I was kind of half-hearted about it. It was cool, but I wasn't sure where it was going. It seemed a little. The guy seemed a little indecisive about stuff. It was a little just hard to figure out what was going on. But we're getting paid. So I started hanging out with the drummer, this guy named Jason Sutter. He was the drummer on the gig, and we would start talking on breaks and stuff like this. Seemed like a cool guy. One day we're talking, and he goes talking about bands we like and this and that. And I said, oh, I like this band. I'm like, fan of King's X, and I really like Our Lady Peace. And he's like, dude, Our Lady Peace, those are my bros, this and that. And he's like, those are my guys, man. I just saw them last month when they were here or whatever. And it turns out that the only time our old drummer, Jeremy, had someone fill in for him for a week, Jason was the guy who filled in for him, because Jason played with the band Letters to Cleo for about a year at the time when Letters to Cleo was touring with Our Lady Peace. So they had toured together years and years before, so they knew each other. So I was like, no way, man, this and that. He's like, oh yeah, I just saw those guys, and we're talking. They were actually on tour with American Hi-Fi at the time, and he knew the guys from American Hi-Fi. So I was like, oh, that's rad, this and that. And so, we kind of, talked a bunch just on breaks and stuff. Anyways, that gig ended, and he said, hey, let's stay in touch, this and that, man, just in case, because he's definitely a guy who knows. He's like the Kevin Bacon of should be like everybody knows Sutter.
6
Jason
degrees
Sutter.
Of separation or something like that, right?
Sutter has played with everyone from, Our Lady Peace to now he's doing Cher, and he's done Marilyn Manson and Foreigner. And Chris Cornell.
Oh wow,
he knows everybody. So we stayed in touch, and I couldn't believe it. It was maybe like 2 weeks later. I'm sitting in my apartment in Sherman Oaks. I get a call from someone, and I look, and oh, it's Sutter. I pick up the phone, and He's like, hey man, how's it going? Oh, it's Jason. Yeah. Oh, cool. This and that. And he goes, hey man, I might have a gig for you. Thinking, okay, it's just an audition like somewhere. He goes, and I'm like, oh, cool. He goes, yeah, you're never going to guess who with. I'm like, what? Our Lady Peace. I'm like, what? I had no idea they were, splitting up with their guitar player or anything like that. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, and he said, look, the guys called me, they're Canadian. They don't know a lot of people here in the States. They know me. They said, we're thinking about making a guitar player change. And, you're someone we know that's down there in LA where you know a lot of guys. Do you know anybody? And he said to them, hey, I know this kid. He really likes your band. He's a little green, like he's young. He's like from Michigan. He's kind of new out here, hasn't really been on the road or anything like that. But, could be a good, like, a guy that isn't, bitter or bent on the industry or anything like that. So anyway, sorry, I know I'm making this long.
No, go ahead. It's perfect.
I can definitely be long-winded, but
no.
So
You're told this is great.
So it was, again, the way things are random. At that time, Our Lady Peace was in Maui in Hawaii working with Bob Rock, the producer.
Mm-hmm.
Produced like Metallica and Motley Crue and a bunch of stuff. Sorry, I clicked my computer on accidentally. So they were there working on that, and things weren't going well with the guitar player they had. So he gave me our old drummer Jeremy's phone number. He said, "Here, call Jeremy and just chat a little bit and stuff. He'll kind of tell you what's going on with them and this and that." So I called Jeremy in Hawaii, where they're like finishing up making their first record with Bob, or they were in the finishing the record's like 3/4 done or so. And so he and I started talking this and that, and just kind of just casual, because nothing was. They had kind of just sort of parted ways with their guitar player, and they hadn't figured out how they were going to audition or look for new people and this and that. And they also had another guy that toured with them, who was a great guitar player, Jamie Edwards. So they didn't need someone right there, right then, but eventually. So anyways, it was in December, kind of. It was getting towards the end of the year. Those guys, we started talking, where are you from, this and that. They were all taking a break for Christmas and going home. So we started talking. They said, oh, you're from Detroit area. Like, you're going to be home for Christmas. We're actually going to be in Toronto over that. Would you want to drive up and just shoot the shit, hang out, maybe jam a little bit? So,
not that Detroit is anywhere near Toronto.
3-4 hour drive,
That's great.
Right?
Hey, you're in Detroit. We're in Toronto. Let's hook up. What?
Yeah. Hey man,
that's great.
Yeah. But at that point too, when you're a 23-year-old kid, you're like, I'll walk there.
Absolutely. No, I'm feeling it, man. Hey, you're in Virginia. I'm in New York. Let's connect. Great.
Hey, cool, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Part of me, I got to say, part of me wishes I still had that energy and ambition. So literally, like, I drove out there to Toronto a few days before Christmas, and Rain, our singer, Our Lady Peace singer, wasn't there. He was in LA at the time, but so I drove out there and met Jeremy, our old drummer, and Duncan, our bass player, at the same time. We went to their rehearsal space and just kind of jammed a few tunes and hung out. And then I stayed for a couple days and just kind of hung out and stayed with Jeremy, because a lot of a band is like, sure, can you play
the hang?
Also, yeah, if you're going to be living with us at this time, the band toured like 9-10 months out of the year. Can we deal with you as a person? So kind of hung out for a couple days, and everything was great. And they said, well, we're still trying to figure this out. So, hang tight. And anyways, about a week later, they called me and said, hey, we're going back out to Maui to finish the record. Would you like to come and just hang out for a week or two? And hey, if we need some guitar stuff, if you got an idea, throw something down and just, have you come out and just hang out. And so I said, of course, well,
twist my arm. Yeah. I want to go out to Maui with the guys from Our Lady Peace to hang out.
I know. Yeah. Right.
Tough decision.
So right after, it would have been 2002, right after the new year, I went out there. They flew me out and hung out there for a week or two while they were finishing the record. And, at this point, most of the songs were done, and it was finding sweetener guitar parts and stuff. So we're all sitting around. Of course, I was nervous as hell, but I'd say, hey, what about this for this song? So I came up with a few little parts and some songs and played a couple things. The song Somewhere Out There, actually, I was there when that was, came into fruition. That was like the last song for the record, I think. So I got to see all that happen, which was really exciting, and play on it a little bit. So I was out there for a couple of weeks doing that, and it went pretty well. I was very green to making a record in a studio. There were some things I did not understand what was needed, and so it didn't go incredibly smoothly, but they still saw what I could do and everything. And so we left there, and they said, well, look, we haven't figured out how we're going to look at auditioning other guys, this and that, so we can't tell you exactly. So then there was a period of about 2 or 3 months where I didn't know. They were talking to a couple other guys, and they actually did this thing where they did a call out for people to send in videotapes if you think you got what it takes to be an OLP. So they had to go through like hundreds of videotapes, watching stuff. And I was talking to them this whole time. It was cool. I was trying to keep expectations low and everything. It was a bit pins and needles there for a while. Good problem to have, but. So they went through and looked at a bunch of stuff, and then sometime in March, I think, or February, they called me and said, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, man, we think we want you to do this. So let's do this. We got a video shoot in 3 weeks, and then we got some stuff to play. So get your gear together, get your shit together, and make sure your passport's in order, and we'll see you in Toronto," kind of thing.
Make sure your passport's in. Did you even have a passport at that point in time?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I was going to say that you can't do that now in 3 weeks. That's or maybe you can. You have to pay a shit ton of money. But yeah, that's great, man. So you still didn't know that you were a member of the band yet, or did you at that point? Did they say, "Hey, we want you in the band"? Or
by the way, it's funny too. Telling these stories, I feel like a grandma where you kind of go to a distant land. I sort of like was out somewhere mentally there for about 10 minutes. I kind of turn back here, and you kind of. So thank you. It's nice to like go to those places sometimes.
That's cool, man. Everybody says they come on the show. They say you should change the name to "Everyone Loves Therapy."
All right. Or everyone loves therapy, or everyone loves memory lane.
Yeah, right. Something like that. I get that.
Well, they said, they said, let's try it. Let's try and see how things go. It was more that kind of vibe and stuff. So that was good enough for me.
Oh, hell yeah. That's great, man. And then everything worked, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, there's been growing pains along the way. Like I said, I was someone who had never really been, my buddies and I, wrote songs and made like records on 4 tracks when we were kids and stuff like that. But I'd never really been in an original band. And in a way, I think I'd kind of given up on that. I loved the idea of going to LA and trying to do like a Tommy Tedesco thing, playing in sessions. So there were things about being in a band, and especially being in an original band, that I just had no kind of clue about. And I also was someone who, and some people would probably want to like hit me for this reason, I've never really toured or anything. I literally went straight to a tour bus, never did van tours, never did anything like that. So, I wasn't conditioned to touring and all that kind of stuff. So, between writing and recording and touring, a lot of things that were really unfamiliar to me, there were growing pains for sure. But luckily the guys, did and have stuck with me and stuff. So it's been great.
That's so cool. But yeah, people can't hold you to unrealistic expectations either. They knew you were new at this. They can't it's like, you can't expect a puppy to, act like a seasoned dog and not tear up your house and piss all over the place. Not that I'm comparing you to a puppy, but people have realistic expectations of things usually. They can't.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I can think of a very concrete example. One time, someone asked us, a friend, when we were on the road in the beginning, "Hey, so what's been the hazing stuff?" And somewhere down the line, we were talking about it, and they said, like, we knew that there was going to be no hazing because getting in the studio and writing and recording was going to be hazing enough. And I didn't really get it at the time, but now, absolutely, it was not easy. And I think they believed in me, but they knew from what they've gone through with making records that that it's not easy to kind of like learn what's expected of you in the studio, what's needed out of a guitar player in a band, and it wasn't easy. And so they kind of foregone and put aside the hazing because they knew there'd be some tough times there, which is interesting.
It sounds like they're actually really supportive of you, which is great, man.
From day one, they wanted to be a guitar band, and they wanted me to do my thing. Like, it was kind of crazy from like day one. It was just like, we want you, we want your thing, we want your guitar presence, and pretty cool. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. It's a nice environment to walk into. That's good, man. And here you are, man. It worked out.
Absolutely. And, it's nice, if you go through some pains and stuff and some learning experiences, but you learn from it. And, I'm so lucky in so many ways, so many things that I've, learned from being in the band, how I've been able to use that, in things I do for TV scores and stuff, and vice versa. And I look around here, I'm in my studio and I got a lot of great guitars and stuff like this, and stuff I maybe kind of only dreamed about when I was a kid, that I got a 55 Les Paul Jr. sitting over here, kind of like
that is badass
stuff like that, and so, but when you're doing that kind of thing, you kind of have to have those. When you're working with Bob Rock, you kind of have to have shit that sounds like that. And so, nice problem to have.
That's awesome, man. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I'm really glad.
Oh, thank you, man.
So let's talk about, you mentioned the movies. You've done a bunch, and I would assume you like doing that because I know you're packed, your schedule's slammed with that right now. How did you get into it? What do you like about it? I mean, besides the licensing revenues, which honestly, as an outside guy coming from the business world, and I always say this, if anybody is not looking at doing this stuff, they're crazy, because I mean, you got to have a plan B in music today. And this is like this is effectively, once you get it up and running, it's mailbox money. Nothing's ever wasted. You got this catalog, and 3 years later, someone says, "Hey, you have a Latin thing?" And so, "Oh yeah, here you go. I did this, 18 months ago for another project, and they didn't use it, but here you go."
Yeah, it's interesting when you kind of get into like the music industry, how when you start to see what are the things that actually create income, and where are the money streams, where are those actual things. And obviously it was different 20 years ago when the record industry was huge and happening, and
when there was a record industry.
Yeah, well, basically any human being, any Westerner in the US and Canada had a certain percentage of their population pretty much that they spent on music, and that just doesn't exist anymore, which, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, to see, I remember when I first moved to LA and started working, I got hooked up with a guy from Michigan through my music store who does TV ads for a living, commercials. And I remember him telling me right away, he's like, "Steve, the guys in this town who live in houses are the guys who live in houses in nice areas are the guys who write. And the guys that you look up to and that are amazing players, they might have a house, and it's definitely in the valley." And it sounds like maybe a bit of a materialistic way of saying it, but in a simple way, that's kind of true. And I still mostly play because I just love playing, and there's a whole different pressure that comes with writing stuff. But I will say, not to sound depressing to anybody, but I did write for a while, for one season, on a show called Rules of Engagement, which I know you mentioned. And when I get like ASCAP statements, which is like, your royalty statements that like every quarter, it's a little sad to see that, like, let's say if there's like, $800 total, how literally 600 of it will be from like that TV show or some other TV shows I've written for. And maybe 200 of it will be like from Our Lady Peace stuff.
Yeah.
It's still an area where there are still revenues and stuff still gets paid out and everything. And nowadays it's just like with music streaming stuff, just the royalty rates and stuff aren't great. But it's also interesting, even besides writing, with TV and movie stuff, when you do union sessions, there's this whole extra sort of society that exists. It's a bit of a share the wealth fund where, for example, my friend does the music for Modern Family. And there's not a ton of music on the show, but because that show's been so successful, I'll get these checks just because I've played on it and because it gets shown so much and so much. So it's like, okay, so if all this money was made by everybody on this show, we feel that the people that involve in the music side, even people that didn't write the music, deserve a little part of it. They shouldn't, someone shouldn't make $200 to play on an episode of Modern Family, and then it gets shown a billion times, and they don't.
Yeah, and then they don't get anything else. Yeah.
So that's been very nice. I'll get checks just from Modern Family getting shown and stuff like that.
That's great.
And that's just from playing on it and stuff. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good. How did you get into this, and what do you like most about it?
I was just going to say, I remember you asked that. So, not trying to make too long of a story. So, it's funny, just again, random things. Right after I moved to LA, and I said I started calling people, I got hooked up with my buddy Gabriel Mann. he had a band at the time. He's a songwriter, artist. And I called this one guy and he said, "Hey, my roommate is in a band and they're looking for a guitar player." And actually what's funny is you asked about people earlier who have gone on to do good things. The guy who he was talking about, his roommate, was this guy, Adam Marcello, who's a drummer, who's been Katy Perry's drummer and MD for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah. Someone else who's done really well. So he said, "Hey, my roommate's band is looking for a guitar player, this and that." So, okay, cool. Again, got the CD from the guy, learned the songs, went and auditioned, and we all really hit it off. So we had a band together. It was just called Gabriel Mann, my buddy. And we did tons of shows and stuff like that. We made some records at his studio together over the years. And but then, I got the Our Lady Peace gig, so I went away and did that. And fast forward a bunch of years, Gabe always kind of was interested in writing music for TV and stuff. So he was an assistant to a guy, and then he stopped doing that and went out on his own. And actually, it's interesting. The guy he was an assistant for is named David Schwartz, who did all the music for Arrested Development.
Oh, wow.
So if you're watching that show, you'll hear Gabe singing stuff and everything. And anyway, so Gabe decided to go out on his own and try to become a TV composer on his own. And the very first show he got was Modern Family, which is like a massive show. And it was literally the very first show he got completely on his own. So, but there's not a lot of music in that show, but it's definitely someone very deserving that it went to him, because he's a hard worker. He's incredibly talented, extremely versatile, because he's a songwriter as well as a composer. So after Modern Family, he started getting tons of calls.
But hold on a second. What's the difference between songwriting and composing?
Well, if you are,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no. Well, if you're watching a show and you hear underscore, a lot of times it's just kind of like music. And a lot of times there are guys that are composers that aren't necessarily songwriters and stuff.
Okay, so they're putting the undershow. Is that what you called it?
Right. They call it underscore. Yeah.
Underscore. Okay. Okay. I get it. So they're writing music, not necessarily songs. That's composing.
Right.
Okay.
They're a little more like composers, almost in the traditional sense, like, like a Beethoven or something like that, where they're just writing music. And it's a whole different thing when you're writing it for TV, because you're interacting with the scenes and what's happening and stuff. But what's interesting about Gabe is that he was an artist and he can actually write songs and stuff too. So that comes in handy when people want to actually have songs and things on shows.
Sure.
So anyway, so, we had always been friends, and he started getting all this work, and he's not a guitar player. He's a keys player, and he wanted guitar. So he started asking me if I wanted to do it. And now it's been like 10 years. We've been cranking it out pretty steadily. And I love it. It's fun. It's always different. He and I, since we've known each other so long, like, he'll just send me stuff and doesn't really have to say much about what to do. And so we have a good relationship. And it's a fun world, because it's just kind of like, because TV schedules are kind of, things turn around really quickly, there's not always a whole lot of time to scrutinize. So it's kind of fun in a way that it's always just kind of like, okay, next. There's a bit of a schedule to it, and it's just always different. And sometimes it's so random, but really the randomness makes it really fun.
That's great, man. And even if you're on tour, you could probably do some of this in your off hours.
You can. I did it on one of our tours. We had this cartoon you mentioned in the beginning called Dawn of the Croods, which had this crazy guitar. They basically orchestrated the show with guitar. It was so fun. But I took a rig with me, and I did the episodes when we were on a big Canadian tour. I just found we were in all these hockey arenas, so I would just go find a dressing room and set up. And
that's cool, man.
It's funny how my tech said, he goes, "You actually been playing better on this tour, I feel like, because you had something to do during the day with like your energy." And yeah.
Well, a lot of guys tell me that, like, when I first started the show, I'd often make do interviews, and the guys would be on tour. I'm like, "Hey, man, are you okay? I know you're out of your home. You sure you're okay in a hotel?" And they're like, "Man, are you kidding me? Thank you. I got something to do now for an hour or two. Because these guys just sit. You guys just like sit around. It's like incredibly boring. It's rough." And
it's weird though. Like maybe it's just different people. Like, I in general don't get bored very often, and I have a very kind of opposite experience on tour, where usually it's like like people say, think because a lot of guys in the band and our crew, they do get bored. But for me, I'm always kind of like, oh shit, we already got to go to sound check. I wanted to do this and do that. And
oh, that's great.
I kind of have the opposite experience where it seems like it's a rush a lot of times, which is probably good. Yeah,
that's much better than to sit around. I had a guy coming to town recently, and he gave me a call. He goes, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And so we went out at night, and we just like had a couple of drinks and stuff, and smoked some cigars down in Ybor City. And he was like, "Man, thank you so much. I never get to leave campus. This has been such a breath of fresh air." And I actually felt bad. People, and it's funny because the perception is like, and you guys are like, everything's glamorous and it's just 24/7. It's like entertainment TV network. And that's like far from the truth most of the time,
Oh,
like, you're busting your butt doing your other stuff while you're in, got your rig going. And, it's just, people don't realize that it's not all fun. And, it's great for 90 minutes. And then like the rest of the time, maybe not so much,
Exactly. It's awesome. And, there are definitely some parts that get to be a grind.
Yeah. Do you have any cool, like maybe rock and roll stories from being on the road with the Stones, Guns N' Roses, or Bryan Adams?
Let's see. Well, those Guns N' Roses was the only one that was actually like a run like of shows. Bryan Adams we've done a few times, and the Stones has been a couple times, but they weren't really tours.
Did you get to talk to those guys from the Stones at all?
Yes. Matter of fact, it's so cool. I have a picture. We got to they were totally cool. We got to meet them, take a picture with them. And it's pretty funny. Someone saw that picture. I forget who said it. And they said, if you're just like a person who's not opening up for the Stones or whatever, and you want to get your picture taken like you did, I don't know if this is true, but they said it costs you like $300,000 to do that.
Oh, you mean they charge?
Apparently, if you want to like get your picture taken with the Stones and you're not opening up for them or something, so someone said like that you got to do that for free, and that literally cost some people $300,000. I don't know if that's true, but maybe it's not far off or something. So they were very cool. We got to hang with them and take a picture and stuff. And
that's a pretty, like, if you really want to look at that, that's a pretty strong indictment of celebrity fascination that somebody would spend $300,000, if it's true, to get a picture with anybody. I mean, that's nuts. Yeah, to be honest with you, got to have more money in my opinion, more money than sense to be doing that. I mean,
I guess if you're Elon Musk or something like that, and it doesn't matter. I will say though, it's interesting. Like, we've gotten to meet a few people, this and that, but and I'll send my family pictures, this and that. And when I kind of sent around that Stones picture, you kind of realize even from people's reactions, the reaction from that was much different than other people. It was like, holy shit, photoshopped? Are you serious? I was like, okay. I mean, I'm a big Stones fan.
Sure.
But it all becomes a little sort of the same after a while. But man, everyone else was like, holy shit, that's intense. You got to make sure you print that and frame it and stuff. But besides that, Bryan Adams we played with a few times, and he's been awesome. Matter of fact, he's been like, hey, what are you guys doing? Come to my dressing room, hang out, this and that. He's always been super friendly and super encouraging, wanting to ask us about what we're doing and everything. And story-wise, we got to do a run with Guns N' Roses a couple summers ago. We did 5 shows in Canada, and there was a lot of interesting stuff that went on there. Seeing a production of that magnitude and what goes into a show like that and everything.
What a bill, you guys opening up for Guns. You're getting your money's worth there, man.
Thank you. It was cool. And I got to say, overall, for the most part, it was very positive with the audiences. The experience was really positive. And it's kind of fun we're very spoiled in general. We have awesome fans who are diehard, and you get spoiled by that. People singing the lyrics to every single song.
That's
and
nice.
That. It's good to go do things like that every now and then, because you're going out there and all of a sudden you go out there and you're seeing 50-year-old ladies with tattoos and their biker shorts and stuff, and they don't give a shit. They are half drunk already. They want to see Guns N' Roses. Who the F are you,
Yeah.
It's good for a band. It's hard work. I was moving around way more than usual. You got to try to win them over for 45 minutes. And it's good for you, I would say. You definitely kind of like when they say the Beatles, like when not that we're the Beatles, but used to play for 4 hours at those clubs when they were starting out. And they had to figure out how to entertain people. You you learn quickly, like some things. And overall, it was kind of nice seeing like that 50-year-old lady with the tattoos. And about 5 or 6 songs into the set, you could tell, since it was Canada, they'd be like, wait a second, I've heard this song before. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the next song, they're kind of singing along a little bit. So that was rewarding. It made you feel good. But I'll tell you one thing, it was crazy. Guns N' Roses, they played for 3.5 hours every night on that tour.
Wow.
3.5 hours.
That's pretty powerful.
And they killed it. Axl sounded great. They would do some jamming and stuff, and people absolutely got their money's worth. Like, I'd heard a couple things, Axl could be temperamental, this and that, we're wondering, are all the shows even going to happen? It was like the opposite of that. They were like 7:30 every night. They hit the stage, played for 3.5 hours. People played every song and this and that. And one thing I thought was interesting though, Axl had his own bus. And we were
wait a minute. Axl has his own bus, and the rest of the band has another bus.
I think
that's wild.
Duff and Slash had their own buses as well.
You think Duff and so they had like 5 or 4 buses for the band?
Oh, I think at least. And then the entourage, just what they had for their stage and everything, what they had to travel with. I think I took a picture of it at one gig. It was like 12 semis that traveled with them.
Wow.
Matter of fact, it was 2 days off in between every show because they had to have that long to go to the next town to set up the stage.
That's wild.
So one thing that was interesting is we were in Regina, Saskatchewan, and we had a show there. And we realized that it was Axl's bus that was parked right outside the hotel. And we were talking he had a masseuse that traveled with him. She was a really nice girl. We started talking to her and said that, and I don't mean this to sound like to paint him as like a freaky guy. I get it. That he didn't stay in hotels. He stays on his bus the entire time.
Sure. I can actually get that. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to get bothered or anything like that.
If he's got his own bus, it's probably done to his specs, what he likes. So it's
probably better than any house we've ever had inside.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of funny. Our bus was parked right outside the hotel in Regina this one night. And it was when one of those, I actually wasn't there for this, but I was told about it secondhand. I was being my recluse self, wasn't there. It was the night of like maybe one of those like Merriweather fights or something. Forgive me, really a fight guy. So we had it on our bus because like Rain, our singer, is very into that stuff. So we had paid the $40 or whatever to watch the fight. And so we're watching it. I think a couple people from maybe his masseuse was there watching it with the guys, or a couple people from his camp or something. That doesn't sound very PC. His masseuse was, but a bunch of people were watching. And apparently he wanted to watch the fight, but something happened to his feed, so it like wasn't working. And so we had the window open on our bus, and apparently the guys look out, and he's like pulled up the blind to his, and he's watching through his window into our bus to watch.
Why didn't he just come hang with you guys? That would have been a lot easier.
I mean, I get from his point why he wouldn't want to, and just to relax or whatever. But that was pretty funny that he's like, even when you're Axl Rose, sometimes you can't get everything. You want to watch the goddamn fight.
Yeah, right. That's
through your window into the other people's bus. Yeah.
Did you get a chance to talk or play with either Slash or Richard Fortus?
I didn't, but I could have. They were very cool about stuff. I just, again, we were talking about some people think you're bored on the road. It was one of those things where I was probably all concerned after our sound check, and I was messing with something. Yeah. So I was flabbergasted or concerned. But if we wanted to, we could have. Yeah. They were very cool, and they were hanging out during the day and stuff like that. Yeah.
I actually had Rich on the show. He's a super nice guy. Very well trained musician.
I was just about to say, like, that dude is a bad ass, man. Loved watching him. I mean, Slash is great, and Slash is doing his thing, and he was one of my big influences. Richard, though, too, man. What a great compliment to Slash's thing. And, man, I would say if you're interested in Guns N' Roses at all, like, go see it. It was worth it.
Well, the thing is, everybody knows what a great guitarist Slash is, and Rich is like understated and like kind of not takes a back place, but because Slash is such a popular player and popular personality. But Rich is a first call session player in New York City for a long time. He played with Depeche Mode. He played with the singer for Depeche Mode. What's that?
Psychedelic Furs, I think.
Sorry, I meant Psychedelic Furs. Sorry, scratch that. It was Psychedelic Furs, and he played with Robert. Can't think of his last name. The singer. And then they had a band, and he had Dead Daisy. So he went to he didn't go to Berklee, but he went to some music school conservatory. I mean, he's a very well trained.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a very well trained musician. Like I said, he's a first call guy in New York. He's played with Puffy. He's been on a lot of tracks.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, no, nobody knows it. It's because like I got a lot of feedback from that. People said, "Holy shit, man, I didn't know all this about him." But wow, I got a new respect for the guy as a musician. So,
oh yeah. And by the way, too, that reminds me really quick. I should give a shout out. I believe the drummer for Guns N' Roses, Frank, I think is his name.
Yeah,
I think the two of them. What do you know his last name?
Frank.
Might be an F as well. I should know this.
I can look it up real quick, but they've played together. I think they were in Dead Daisies, maybe.
I think they might both be in Psychedelic Furs too. And I got to say, it was very cool. I'm so lame when it comes to watching bands that open for us. Every single night we played, that dude was on the side of the stage watching our set. I mean, he's got
Frank Ferrer. That's really cool.
Frank Ferrer. There you go.
That's really
such
cool.
a nice dude. And I mean, that guy has to go out, and they would Guns N' Roses would go on right basically when we were finished. Like 15 minutes later, it seemed like that dude's got to go on stage and play for 3.5 hours. Yet for 45 minutes before that, he would sit and watch us every night, and he would give our drummer thumbs up and stuff like that. I mean, that's cool, man. That's above and beyond the Call of Duty,
That is cool. Yeah, he was in Psychedelic Furs and Love Spit Love, which was the band that Richard Butler and it was Richard Butler, Frank, Rich Fortis. Richard Butler was the singer from Psychedelic Furs.
Okay.
Richard Butler, yes, was the singer from Psychedelic Furs. When they were on hiatus, it was him, Richard Fortis, Frank Ferrer, and another guy, and they were in that band Love Spit Love together. And then he was in Dead Daisies also with Rich Fortis. So they played together quite a bit.
Yeah, you could probably part of the reason, yeah, because they sounded good, yeah.
And in fact, if I remember correctly, they were both in New York at the time, and Frank is the one, I think, that got him the original Guns audition. I think. I'm not, if I remember, but I think. But Frank, what's that? I think so. Yeah, I believe so. So that's how the connection there was. So it's a small world with musicians. It seems like it's and which is good in a way, because I think if you're an asshole, that that probably if you're really good, it spreads. That it's a vetting process, sort of.
Oh yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're not a good hang or tough to work with, that's going to spread pretty quick.
Yeah. And it should, man, because it's a competitive industry,
And that's one thing too. Like, I don't want to sound ignorant, but that's one thing I love about music too, is how it just keeps. There's never an end. I don't feel like there's always more stuff to find and more. Like Psychedelic Furs is someone I'm not really familiar with, and I've actually been meaning to check them out, and I'm glad we're talking now. When we're done, I'm going to check it out. And that's one thing I just, not to sound cheesy or something, but one thing I just love about music is it's never ending. There's just always more stuff out there. You get into one artist and you find out what's similar to that or what they're into. And I'm excited when we're done now to check out the Psychedelic Furs, and maybe it'll end up being one of my new favorite things.
Yeah. They were a good band. And that guy's a great voice. You said you were born in Port Huron, which is, like, I looked it up. It's like literally right on the Canadian border, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's freaking cold, man. And then you moved to Richmond, which it's like 30 minutes southeast. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your childhood like growing up? And you said you had older sister, younger sister, two stepsisters. What was growing up like in general?
I mean, pretty idyllic, pretty, I guess, middle class, America kind of thing. But I don't know. I had a great childhood. I kind of couldn't ask for anything more. I grew up, in a town about an hour north of Detroit, and but it was great. It was a small town. Grew up on a dirt road.
Oh wow!
I grew up next to a farm that was like a 40-acre farm that we could go roam around these wheat fields if we wanted. And it's funny, we've talked about it recently, like with my mom. It was just a different time. My mom was very protective and stuff, but we were able to just jump on our bikes and ride 2 miles up into up to Kmart in town whenever we wanted, down these like dirt roads, like no problem. Just let me know when you're leaving. Yeah. And nowadays, like, I feel like no way, it's like very few places you could do that. So there's something I feel about, I guess I'm sure there's research or something about having that kind of freedom and that space to roam around in. I even read something recently where Neil Young, I think, was talking about his childhood and how important he felt like it was to have nature and outdoors or something. But that was pretty cool, all the freedoms we had growing up where I grew up. And yeah, I have a older sister and a younger sister, and very supportive parents. My dad had a trucking company growing up. Definitely typical small town stuff. That was my nickname in Our Lady Peace for a bunch of years, was small town. They all come from Toronto and stuff. And ours was definitely, Richmond, Michigan, where I grew up, is everybody kind of knows everybody. And, people would see me and they knew who I was because I looked like my dad, and definitely small
cool.
towns, which is great. And then, and then like we've mentioned before, I had a great, also too, like my dad died when I was 14. So that was definitely,
sorry about that, man. That's a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah, that was definitely tough and sudden and everything like that. And all that stuff makes you who you are.
Yeah.
But up until that point, things were pretty awesome, super supportive parents, and definitely raised in a way where we weren't spoiled. We were like, you had to do your chores to get your allowance and this and that. And even with like lessons and stuff, my parents had the money to buy me a wah pedal when I wanted a wah pedal, but nope, I had to save that $70 to get that wah pedal if I wanted it. And I think that's good to have that.
That's really good, man. Yeah. I did that to my kids, and they hated me because I'm like the only one who of their friends that did that shit. But now, like my younger one, she's only 18, but my older ones are very happy I did that. They're 28 and 26, so they have their own lives, and they're happy. But you got to do that stuff, man. You can't be.
Yeah. I think when you get that pattern in you when you're young, even now, it's ridiculous. I can pretty much buy guitars when I want to and stuff, but I'm always thinking about stuff, because that's kind of instilled in you. And and then also too, like I feel like we talked a little bit about. I was very lucky where the guitar teacher I got hooked up with when I was a kid. Man, from being from a small town, I got so lucky because Kevin Odenbacher was named my guitar teacher growing up. And
hold on, man. Let's give a shout out to Kevin because he's the one who hooked us up. So, Kevin, thank you for listening to the show, and thanks for this intro, man. This is great.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Craig and I were talking. And Kevin listened to the show and actually got a hold of you, right? And said, "Hey, who do you want to Steve on?"
Yeah, it's like but it's really funny because I get a lot of emails, and I'm always like, kind of skeptical, to be honest with you, because. Maybe it's the New York in me but I'm always like, oh God, because I've had, I'm friends with this guy, and I don't know if like there's a lot of wacky people out there, because like you're an entertainer, so you probably have people out there that maybe they've followed you around, they know every note you've played, and they think you're friends, right? I mean, it's just like there's nutty shit going on. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm friends with this guy," I'm like,
that can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. And, I'm like, and then when I say, "Oh, here's his contact info," I'm like, hey, Kevin referred to me. I'm like, I don't want, like, who the hell is, because then I'm looking like a nut, and I'm like very practical. So I was always, but he was very, he said a few things that were, that I knew he was legit. So
okay, yeah. That's funny, man. When you get out there, you think okay, people all have a certain amount of filters, and they're all a certain degree of coolness. But you get out there, man, and there's wacky people who there's like no filter and there's no boundaries, and you kind of like learn when you're dealing with different amounts of celebrity or whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. We went to I interviewed Aaron McLean, the guitar player from Air Supply. Do you know him? He's out in LA and he does film stuff too.
I know of Air Supply. Yeah, I don't know him though.
Super cool guy. And while I was waiting, the show ended and he was having some problems with his guitar, but we were waiting sort of at the front of near the front of the stage, and this is in Disney at Epcot. They played Epcot, and so it was really funny because there was a woman who comes over and she was making a really big fuss, like, "Hey, listen," and she had this fucking like convoluted story, like, "My husband was the guy that did this," and like I just looked at Ann and was like, "Oh, here you go," and it was just, it went on and on forever. It was so convoluted, it was impossible to have any modicum of truth in it, right? And but she was so persistent that you could tell, like, in her mind they had a relationship, her and the band, or her and whoever, Graham maybe, or one of the lead singers. It's just, and I was like, holy shit, this is what these guys got to deal with, man. That's nutty crap, because I'm like, and then I'm like, well, then I hope they're going to believe me. But then they, Aaron came over to me and shook my hand, so it was like not a. They had, they saw that and I'm like the opposite. I'm like completely unassuming, and I'm like, excuse me, would you mind? So it was a little different, but I know people, like, I could imagine only what you guys have to go through.
Well, because I know what I'm like, you know what I mean? And then, so you kind of maybe ignorantly think that everyone else is going to be kind of like that. And I started learning when I got, first couple of years in the band, it's like, whoa, okay.
No.
and, I think even when I was, before I was in a band, you get around people that you see as celebrities, sometimes you just act differently and stuff. And there's that, what I can understand. But then there's also people that just have different ways of looking at stuff. And wow, yeah, I'm not a very assertive guy, and I've had to learn to be a little assertive.
Well, you got to set boundaries, because it's like you can't have nutty people just like, you want to be gracious because they're fans and stuff, but like.
That took me a while to learn too, because you feel bad. You don't want to feel bad, this and that, but sometimes it's kind of like you got to watch out for yourself, and it can get interesting. Oh yeah, and yeah.
I'm sorry, miss. We got off on a tangent. So yeah, so Kevin, talk about Kevin's influence on you.
Man, it's like I feel like sometimes we were talking how there's always a luck of element involved. It seems like no matter what, and Kevin is like, man. He's one of these guys. He was my guitar teacher from when I was like 7 till about 17.
Wow. That's a long time.
I mean, basically I started teaching at the store myself, and then it was kind of like hard for us to find lessons when I was still, it was a store, Southern Thumb Music was where we both taught before he opened up his own store. And I was like, well, damn, all of a sudden I'm teaching, we couldn't find time. But he was one of these guys who just like, man, he just gives his all into whatever he's doing. And I'm one of these people who I've kind of always needed to be pushed a little bit, I realize now. And man, he just like every week you'd show up, he'd have something that he worked on before the lesson. He like wrote something out. Hey, I thought you might dig this. I thought you might dig that. And a lot of guitar teachers, you go and they're making the same amount of money, and you show up and they might be like, hey man, yeah. Hey, what do you want to work on today?
Dude, I hate Kevin, that.
He was just so above and beyond. He should have been making like 10 times what other guys were making or whatever, just because he was just, always turning you on. And it wasn't just lessons. It was like he has a twin brother Keith, who taught drums at the store. And between the two of them, they kind of took me under their wing, and they took everyone under their wing. And it was like, you just started hanging out at the store. You got to know other students, and, you'd do your lesson, but then you'd hang out and he'd come out and, hey man, have you ever check this out, and giving you cassettes and, CDs and stuff to borrow, and just going above and beyond in like every possible way where, you and I were talking, you can say that, okay, I wouldn't be here without this and that person. And okay, you got to give yourself some credit. But honestly, without that dude, the way I need to be pushed, and as far as how he turned me on to all different kinds of music, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without him.
That's awesome.
Even going to Berklee. Berklee was amazing, and I have only good things to say. It definitely pushed me to the next level, like having confidence and things like that. I still going to Berklee, which is not a cheap school to go to, still never had anyone who was like Kevin in terms of inspiring you and the way he would explain. There were guys at Berklee that were good at explaining stuff, but Kevin just had it all. And it was at a small town, Richmond, Michigan music store. It's like talk about getting lucky,
That's awesome, man. And what's the name of his store? Let's give him a shout out. What's his store?
Yeah, definitely. His store now is KO Music.
KO Music in
Ray Township, Michigan, I believe is the name of the city.
Everybody go check it out. Kevin at Ray Township, KO Music, and tell him you heard about the shop on this show, and what a cool story it was.
Absolutely.
That's good. Thanks, Steve. That's awesome. Hey man, what were some of the lower points, or maybe some of the bigger obstacles you've had to deal with over your career, and how did you manage to get through them? And either personally, music related, business related, anything that was just challenging.
Well, I definitely, in general, I can think of two different things. In general, I am a pretty anxious guy. I definitely have what people would probably call an anxiety disorder or whatever. And I'm also, I realize now, we were talking a little earlier, I understand now that I'm also very introverted, which people might say, well, you're talking a lot now. that doesn't make sense. But the more I learn about it, introversion, extroversion are interesting things. This format, like we're talking, I like and I'm comfortable with because I'm interested in it, and introverts like to not be interrupted, and apparently that's a big thing. And so being introverted and also being an anxious person, I'm like kind of like sensitive to a lot of stuff. Being on the road and things like that, and being in a band in general, can be tough. And I know I'm not the first person out there who's an artist who's sensitive and introverted or whatever. But when you go on tour, that is an environment which is very extroverted. And I would say that probably most people in a touring environment probably are more extroverted. So that has been a lot of challenge over the years, trying to figure out how to deal with that, how to maintain my energy, how not to get burnt out. And, like a lot of people, I think people say, well, how come drugs and alcohol are so prevalent in the music industry? And my opinion personally is that's got to be part of it. Like someone like me, that's how I dealt with it for a long time. I would just got drunk after shows or drank to deal with all the people coming in the dressing room that I really didn't feel like talking to right then. Or, I was kind of.
Oh, yeah. You're wanting to decompress and be completely alone, like close the door, yeah.
I remember, like we would do these meet and greets after shows, and it was kind of like, man, I'm done for the day. I got, not like in a spoiled way, but just, socially, like I got nothing left.
You're
we got a
shot.
50-person meet and greet right now. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. So vodka, so I think that's maybe a reason why, because I'm sure there's other people like me. So
definitely, I can tell you 100%. I spoke to so many guys exactly the same situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a lot of environments you get in, when you're writing together, working together, you're just in close quarters a lot. And I think maybe partially because of the way I grew up, I had a lot of space. I was by myself, and I've never been, I didn't grow up in a band at 17, being on a bus and doing all this stuff. And I don't know if I ever would have gotten used to it, but that in general has taken some getting used to, because I need more time and space than the other guys in the band, and probably a lot of people in general. Yes. So that's been something where for a long time, I think I thought, what's wrong with me? What the hell is my problem? Should I not be doing this? Do I have a future in this if I can't do these kind of hangs? I literally sometimes thought like I'm screwed, because I see whether it's guys in a band or guys that do sessions, they can hang out for hours and they're cool with it. I can't do that because I just start getting so anxious and so uncomfortable. For a long time, I thought I was kind of screwed and I should like find something else. But I figured out that, okay, my mom's told me a lot of times too, you're not the only one, and I'm not. And you find your own way. And, now like right now I'm sitting in my studio and I do a lot of stuff now at my studio by myself, which is great because it's more comfortable for me. And again, I don't think some crazy guy or anything, but basically, yeah, I feel like if anybody out there feels like, because of a personality thing or something that you don't have the ability to do this, it's like, I was kind of there for a while and I realized now that's just bullshit. You just got to find a way. And there's more people out there who are like you than you think. And they're making it work,
Thanks, man. That was really kind of you to share that. And I got to tell you, I was shocked when you said you're introverted, because like from the first time I talked to you, I told my wife, I said, my God, I spoke to this guy today. What a lovely guy. I've never talked to him before. He was such a sweet guy. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. So you had me fooled, whatever you're doing, so.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what too, I feel like there's been some frustration with some people in my life who, when I've had times when I'm just like done, they're like, what the hell's wrong with you? You're totally fine most of the time. And it's a weird thing. The more I learn about introversion, there's certain times when you're totally like this. I'm interested in what we're talking about. Yeah. I can go on as long as I want. Apparently that's why, apparently introverts most of the time love therapy for that reason, because they know they can go to a therapist. You can go talk and you're not going to get interrupted. And apparently that's a big thing. Introverts don't like to get interrupted. So a lot of things are starting to make more sense to me. And even too, performing, people will say, but you're a performer. That doesn't make any sense. But apparently introverts are very drawn to performing a lot of times, partially because they go up on stage and in a way it's a one-way thing. They're going up there and they're doing their thing.
There's no, it's you're broadcasting and you're not required to respond.
Right.
For the most part. Yeah.
Like for me, like not not to sound dramatic, but terror is stuff like, going to a party, because there's like no plan. And I'm just like, well, are we talking about this? Are we talking about that? What do we do? It sounds ridiculous. No one's going to die.
I totally get it.
But I get totally freaked out about shit like that. Yeah.
Age will remediate some of that too, to be honest with you, because as you get older, you're like, you just don't give a fuck. Like, no, seriously, you just like, like when I hit around 50, I was like, you know what? I actually finally like really like me, and I'm good with me. And if somebody isn't, that's fine. I don't really care. It's, I'm not rude to anybody, and I would, so as long as I'm not confrontational, I'm like, you have every right to not like me, but I don't give a shit. It's a very weird thing. You just like when you just get to I did anyway, and a lot of guys that I've talked to, you just get to a point you're like, you know what? This is about me. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to have fun. And, I know I'm a good person. I know I'm not mean to others. So if someone's got a bug with me, that's okay. They're allowed to, it's just a weird thing. I can't explain. My wife, and I think women are even like, going through, after they go, they're going through menopause, they're even more so, because they're like, if you don't like me, go fuck yourself. It's like, because the menopause makes them a little wacky, so
okay.
At least my wife's really cool with me. She's like, hey, I hate you today, but it's nothing to do with you. It's just menopause. I'm like, okay. Thanks. As long as I know what's going on, I can handle anything, but yeah, age will remediate some of that, funny enough.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Not that you need to wait to like, it'll be easier and easier as you go along, is what I'm saying.
And I think what you said too, well, thank you. And I think what you said too about, you get to the point where you're not rude, but you just realize if someone's not into my thing or into me, that's fine. I think that's really profound, actually. Like, you put it in a very good, simple way, but I think it's actually quite of a profound thing when you're cool with yourself. And, that's a huge thing that takes a while for some people like me to get to.
It took me a long time, really long time. When I was your age, I certainly was not cool with myself, not one little bit. But, over the last, through going to therapy and learning and doing this and that, I've become, very cool with myself, not arrogant, like, hey, but I'm happy with who I am. I've worked real hard to be a certain way, and I'm really happy that I've done that. Not that I don't have flaws and can't improve, and I'm always trying, but, I'm happy. So it's like, and it helped in work too, because, being in sales and marketing, it's like, you can say no, that's okay. I don't care. I'll tell people too, like, hey, don't, I'm not some sales guy. If you want this, great. If not, that's totally cool, man. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah.
There's power in that.
I don't know. It's just
like a good kind of power, not like a power hungry power, but because you're being straight up.
Yeah. Well, it's just less, but it's selfish, because it's like, I don't want the stress, and I don't need you to have the stress. So like, let me just neutralize this right away. And, it's okay to say no,
whereas 20 years ago, you would maybe say, no, I'm going to make this work. And
I'd be more willful. Okay. I'd be much more willful, and I got to get this done. And I just realized, man, not to get like religious or spiritual, but I'm not in control of all this shit.
No,
by a long shot. And I'm okay with that too.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was looking over some of the questions you had sent me about this, and some of them were about, what would you tell yourself back then, this and that. And I think that's a big thing that I used to do, is I used to want to control everything. So there were no, variances possible, or no wild cards, this and that. And then the older I get, the more I realize the wild cards are what you want. Like, the flexibility is where like magic happens. Yeah. But man, I had no room for flexibility or surprises in the first like 30 years of my life. No.
Right. It's got to happen. And if it doesn't, life is going to end, and all the shit I've hoped and dreamed for. And it's like, wait a minute, this has been my experience. There's never one thing that is going to go wrong in your life that is going to ruin the rest of your life. Now, there may be one thing that changes it for the positive, but if you're trying to run all that shit, you're not going to find that one thing anyway.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you don't know, you only know what's in your head, and which is very little, for me anyway. And so, I just said, let me be open to shit and let go, and boom.
And you never know. Sometimes something that you feels like it's ruining your life you have no idea where it's going to lead you, you know?
Yeah, and I learned that I got put on the road to that. I had someone that was close to me that was involved, that had drug issues. And I was talking to their sponsor one day and I said, man, I'm really concerned, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you know what? He's going to get it, just not on your timeline. And I was like, fuck. And that was ready to hear that message. And it hit me really profoundly. And I was like, man, thank you. Because it wasn't just about this incident. It was about everything. And I something like I was just ready to hear that message. And I allowed it to, filter throughout and permeate throughout me and everything I did. Like, you know what? This shit is not on my timeline. Chill out, enjoy your life more, and focus on that, being happy and shit like that. And don't worry about all this other shit. You're not in control of it anyway.
Oh, time, man. That's very, it's very interesting how it's hard to like let it go. Right. And to trust in that. But, it's funny. I can think of two examples real quick. You said, what are some things that were tough for you, and I sort of talked about the introversion thing, but another thing was, when I first got in the band, us writing songs and recording and making records, I was very much out of my league with that stuff when we started. And I just sat there and racked my brain about how to get better at this. How do I get better at writing parts and writing songs and playing in the studio better? And man, I pressed and tried for so long. And then after a while, it just kind of happened. It didn't happen when I wanted it to happen. It took longer than I wanted it to happen. But I'll be damned, all of a sudden, a few years down the road, I was like doing the stuff I needed to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, it didn't happen when I wanted it to, and it was frustrating and tough and a bit heartbreaking at sometimes. But it happened eventually.
Yeah, it always does. Like for me, like I said, it was just stress. I said, man, this is causing me a lot of stress. And that became a focus of not wanting stress. And I'm like, fuck, life is stressful enough with the shit that I have to deal with that I don't want to. Now I'm having stress because I'm creating it. I'm not participating in that anymore, man. And
trying to pull something. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, just relax and just chill out. And I'm a super driven person, which was why that was hard to do. And I'm very ambitious, and not ambitious for like ego or vanity or money, ambitious because I want to be the best person I can be in everything, whether I'm like talking to you or, working out in the gym. I always just want to maximize whatever ability I can have. So it was tough for me to realize that, well, wait a minute, by doing nothing, you're maximizing it. That was a conflict for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you. That's tough to let go of. And I know for me, I've always had trouble with the balance of like work and life stuff. And
yeah, totally.
It took me a long time to realize, like, for instance, when I was trying to like write stuff for the band and beat my head against the wall, oh, guess what, dummy? You have to get away from this shit and go start living some life. And then all these things you're working on to try to like be creative, like by getting away from this and going and living life, that was like the big injection I needed, kind of, I feel like a similar thing I was trying to use that. I was trying so hard. And then someone said like, dude, why don't you like go to the mountains for a weekend? How the fuck can I go to the mountains for the weekend? I got to come up with more ideas and this and that. And someone's like, I remember our bass player once said to me, he goes, dude, like good ideas are not in the wood of your guitar neck
or the glass top of your desk.
Yeah. And I think as stupid as it sounds, part of me thought that they were, and it was like, it's in your brain. And so it's like, yeah. And it was so hard for me to realize that the best thing for me to do right now is to lay off this and like go do something else. And I was so, and it took a while, but now I know it. Now I might know it a little too much.
Well, no, because you feel like, okay, if I back off now, I'm giving up. It's hard to say, oh, you're not giving up. You're just like relaxing and you're allowing yourself to the space you need to get the shit done. But it's hard to accept that,
I don't think Jimmy Page was sitting, in his studio like 20 hours a day staring at his guitar. He was out doing some life stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. That's a great point. Well, let's go back and ask him, what advice would you have given to your younger self? Is that it? Just to back off more and smell the roses a little bit? It's
funny. I think it's something I've just realized lately too. I think it would be to because I saw that question too. I thought about it for a minute. I think it would be to trust more in what I do instead of trying to always do what other people are doing. And that might sound a little trite on the surface, but
no, not at all.
Okay, well, I guess it's just sometimes, like, for instance, I'm not a great guy at like jamming with other guys. Like, it's not really like a strength of mine, which might sound stupid, but I'll look at other guys that can like, do this and do that. And sometimes I go like, I'll feel like a hack, like the hell, I can't do this and I can't do that. I got to get this down and that down. But I'm lucky enough to have enough people like Kevin, we were talking about, and friends of mine who love me and know me and support me, that can point it out and say like, okay, but what you do has value, even if you think like it has a hack element to it, or you feel like you're too tense when you play or you're sloppy or whatever. But, at this point, being 40 and being in bands and having had some success, I realized that not everybody can be bullshitting me at this point.
Statistically impossible.
What I do does have some value in it, even if I want it to, at times, to be something else. Now I'm cool with it being what it is for the most part, but for a long time, I wanted it to be something else, and I kept throwing away or naysaying the value in what I did initially. I didn't trust, if I played something, I didn't trust that it was cool, like, unless it was something that I went and worked on. Like, whatever came out of me naturally, well, I don't know, is that any good, or that's typical because it's just what I do. But there's a great book I love called Effortless Mastery, and the author is Kenny Werner, the jazz pianist. And one thing he says in there is, don't be afraid to play the phrases that those are the ones that groove. And a lot of times I thought, okay, the shit that I know that I play over and over again, but it's boring. It's going to be boring to other people, even though it feels good to me. But it's like, when you know something that well and the way you play it, and when it's that ingrained in you, then it has your thing on it. And it's not simple. Or even if it is simple, it's what you do. And I did not have faith or trust in that for a long time, until somewhat recently, that's what I do. And that, so I think my younger self, I would say, go with it, appreciate those things instead of like harping on thinking they're not good enough, and try to develop those even more and trust in that more, rather than thinking it should be something else.
That's awesome, man. There's a book I'm reading. We get the name of it, and I really love it. So there's a guy named Brian Sutton. I don't know if you know him, but for bluegrassers out there know him. He's won the International Bluegrass Guitar Player of the Year award 10 years in a row, and he's really badass. And he recommended this book to me. I just want to get you the name of it. It's fantastic. I've recommended it to a few other people. And it's called let me get this real quick. It's the guy who wrote it was a tennis coach, and he realized that in his coaching that people have a split personality. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galway, Gallwey. Anyway,
we talked about this on one of our calls before.
Did we, man? Yeah, we might have. Because probably it's a great book.
I didn't write it down before, so now I'm definitely gonna.
It's just, and I'm reading the book, and it's like he says you got two voices. You got the critic voice inside of you, and the voice that does the stuff. And there's always the critic telling the other guy what he did wrong. And I'm assuming the rest of the book is going to talk about how to remediate and silence the critic and focus on the doer, because he's like, the critic doesn't do anything, so he's not going to say anything right. So I just thought it was good. So if anybody's like driven or tends to criticize himself, which I do, I think that's a great book.
The author was Sutton again, you said?
No, Brian Sutton's the guy who told me he's the player. It's Timothy Galway, Gallwey, Inner Game of Tennis. He wrote another one on business, but to be honest with you, it seemed really overbloated. This is nice and simple. It's like a couple 100 pages or 150 pages even. It's a nice, easy book. So good book, man.
I'm a book junkie, so I love getting book recommendations from everywhere I get, different places. So
yeah, I think you'll like this one.
Sure. Critic, that's a huge thing. Not to go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
I know that's something that my, you and I have talked a little bit. I have a therapist, and that's one thing she's told me a lot is, I got the strong critic impulse in me. And again, I would have had no idea unless someone pointed it out.
Yeah. Silence that fucking critic. That's what we all got to do, Hey man, let's talk about gear for a few minutes.
Yeah.
What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 guitars might round out your top 3?
Well, for me, it's weird. It's a little split because I feel like my life in general has a little bit of a split between Our Lady Peace and what I do here at home. So, especially too, because even just geographically, all of our Lady Peace stuff is in Toronto. That's our home base. So these days I kind of keep all my Our Lady Peace stuff there. I used to bring stuff back and forth, but it's just with border and stuff. So with Our Lady Peace for a long time, I've been doing the same thing. And I don't go too elaborate because I just dig it. I play Gibson Trini Lopez.
Yeah. That's a great guitar, man.
Oh, actually, these are actually like newer ones too. They're not like vintage ones.
Wait a minute. I thought they stopped making that.
They started making it again in the custom shop, I think around 2009.
Oh.
So I have 2 of them that I think that are around 2009 or 2010. And they're just great guitars. Matter of fact, at the time I was playing older 70s Fender Starcasters in Our Lady Peace, which I got turned on to from Bob Rock. And of course, Johnny Greenwood had one. I love Radiohead.
Oh, great.
And those were awesome. And the Gibson had an office in Canada. And one point we went down there and they said, take this down the street to rehearse with today. Just go ahead and take it. And they gave me a Trini Lopez. And, it's semi-hollow. So it was like the Starcaster. There's something about semi-hollows I love. So it had that, but it had the humbuckers. So it was like the Starcaster, but just with a little more balls, and it had the neck is big and thick.
And it's got that weird looking headstock, those Trinis, don't they?
It's not is it the Firebird headstock? It doesn't have the huge tuning machines, but it's 6 in a line too, which is for Gibson is strange.
Yeah. It looks like almost like a bastardized Fender headstock sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. And the diamond, for the most part, it's a 335, but has a thicker neck, has that headstock, and has diamond F holes, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I took it, and man, for something about it just really worked well for us because it had a little more balls than the Fender, the Starcaster, and that's what I've been using now for I guess almost a decade. I think that was 2009 or something. So I have 2 of those.
What
one
color?
is actually a red one. And the other one is actually the Dave Grohl model.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think for all intents and purposes, is a Trini that had different pickups. So I think it had burst buckers, and I put in 57 classics into the Grohl to make it a little more.
That's what I have in there. I love those, the 57 classic. Oh, my God. They sound so great, man.
It wasn't quite, because the red one I have is really magic, and the black one wasn't quite that. And when I put the 57 classics in there instead, that did a ton.
Really good. I have those in my SG and in this 335, and I absolutely love them, man.
It is something, and I'm sure you know about hollow body. There's just something about semi hollows that, a Les Paul is great, but it can be really dense. And Our Lady Peace, a lot of the stuff has more like, chord voicings that have thirds and have like intervals that are closer together. So on a straight like Les Paul, stuff can get a little mushy. So I just love semi hollows because you can get a little more air. Sometimes chords that have more notes in them, you can hear more of the clarity. And I love too how if you put the mid pickup position, the 2 blended, almost has that chiminess to it that almost has got like a bit of a telly quality or something. Yeah. So overall, I try to keep stuff simple nowadays with our live thing, and so those guitars, it's kind of nice that it's just I have those 2, then I have a regular 335, a newer one, and that's all I use with OLP live are those.
So you're only using semi-hollows. That's great, man.
Yeah,
very cool, very interesting.
And, again, keeping it simple is nice as far as gain stages and all that stuff goes. So then I use.
You're a big guy too, I would imagine. You seem like you look like you're tall.
I'm 6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Because those are bigger guitars, the 335s in general. I think they're easy to handle when you're bigger. I'm not, I'm 5'9". So, but I think that they're big. I think they're easy. They just seem, they always look better on guys that are taller than little guys like me.
I never thought about it. I guess body wise. Yeah. They are kind of have that bigger body to them.
Yeah, for sure.
So those, and then I've been playing Divided by 13 amps for a long time.
Oh, sure, man.
Piece, which I love. Fred is the guy, Frederick Tacone makes them out here in LA. They have a vintage, vibe to them, Vox-ish, Fender-ish, Marshall-ish, depending on the model. But Fred was an amp repairman forever, so he knows a lot of stuff. And he doesn't really go to copy any certain amp. He kind of does his own thing with them. So I just, in general, I like things overall that keep things clear, and like, Fred's amps are all just point to point wiring. It's pretty much what you see is what you get. There's no circuit boards or anything like that. So, so I use his amps, and then basically I've kind of tried everything with Our Lady Peace, from having the pedals in a rack and the switching systems. And, I'll be damned. I don't know if it's a guitar player thing. I am back to just a pedal board sitting on the ground.
Great.
Just because that's what I grew up with. And I had great systems before. Dave Friedman made me a system. It was great with the pedals in the rack. I just could never get comfortable with the fucking thing. It's like if I wanted to just a phaser, it's like, okay, there's an easy way to do it with, you just go like this. But I grew up having those pedals in front of me on the ground. I don't know if it's like a caveman, like, ugh thing. But I just kind of always, so, the downfall is that you got to do some tap dancing, people call it sometimes, when you're switching between tones. You got to hit two pedals off and this one on. But after all these years, I found that I would rather do the tap dancing and just have the pedal board in front of me.
Yeah, you're a professional. I mean, that tap dance thing is part of what you do.
It's kind of fun. Yeah. That ends up being the stuff I have to practice sometimes more than the parts even. It's like, got to turn those two on. I actually have now I actually have a system where all the pedals go through, I know a lot of guys do this, go through a loop box. Yeah. So basically, the only pedals are on are the ones that I'm using. So if I have no pedals, it's actually going just straight into the amp, and not going through all the pedals in series. I guess you're only selecting the ones you want. So I do have that kind of thing going on now.
That's great, man. Again, nice and simple.
And and then my tech loves it, because it's, again, there's no circuit boards besides the ones that are in the pedals or whatever. Everything's nice and simple. So if something shits the bed, as he calls it, it's very simple easy to find what goes down. And then home, basically, I have a 67 refin telly that is pretty one of my main go-tos that I just love. And like I mentioned before too, I have an old single cut Junior, a 55 Junior that is just
man, can I see that?
Yeah.
I love old Les Pauls, man.
Matter of fact, it's this guy.
Wow. That is in great shape. That's a 55?
Yeah.
Was that refinished, or is that?
No, I mean, I don't know if you can see it. It's got its decent amount of beat up, but it doesn't look.
Yeah, it looks great, man.
The headstock isn't too, not too rounded or anything like that.
That's great.
It's interesting. I listened to Charlie Starr's podcast that you guys did.
Yeah.
And I love Blackberry Smoke. I love Charlie.
Those guys are great.
Anybody who has one of these guitars, these single cut Juniors with the old PA, I mean, it's funny, right? Because they were student guitars. It's got one pickup, two knobs.
Leslie West played that, man.
There's just something fucking magical about these guitars. There's not, much to it, as you can see. It's simple, but man, you can get so, like Charlie put it in some real good ways. You can even just playing with a volume knob, a couple numbers here and there, like you can get so much tone out of those things that I know even Steve Howe had one and loved his and stuff. And there's something, and other people hit me to those. A couple people told me, Mike Eisenstein, this guy that plays in Letters to Cleo, played with us for a while, and he had a Junior, and he was saying, man, you got to get a Junior with the single P90s. And now I see why. Those are special guitars. Yeah.
I'd like to get one. It's very cool, man.
Here. Yeah.
Anybody who's influenced your playing that people would be surprised to hear?
I'm a Pantera nut.
That's wild.
We talked about that earlier, I guess. A Dimebag Darrell was like, he was a big one for me. I was big into, otherwise ones that would be surprised. I mean, I love Brian May. Again, Kevin, my old guitar teacher, turned me on to him, and man, he's, I feel like some guys, he's just one of those guys where I can't even figure out where that shit comes from. Like, I feel like maybe he was trying to do think of an orchestra when he was doing his guitar part. And I think I've read that he would think okay, I'm going to make this sound like an oboe here, so I'm going to turn the tone knob down, and he's just from somewhere else, man. But that people wouldn't think, nothing too crazy. Probably maybe Dimebag Darrell. I love Frusciante. I'm a big John Frusciante fan, and I'm definitely I like a lot of different kinds of stuff, and nothing on purpose. I guess I've just always been attracted to a wide variety of music.
Very cool, man. What's any players that you've jammed with that you've enjoyed playing? and anybody that you'd like to jam with?
Oh man, that's interesting. Again, I don't get together with people and jam a whole lot.
A lot of guitar players don't. It's
really? Okay.
Yeah. That's a very common answer, because you're doing your band thing and it's like, like maybe you have someone opening up for you once in a blue moon. So that's not an uncommon question, an uncommon answer. I'm sorry.
I wish I did more. I mean, at Berklee, obviously you were jamming with people all the time, and I don't know why that's something I would think I would miss or want to do more now or something, but I don't do that a ton. Anyone who I would want to jam with, I mean, I think that one guy, because he's still alive, I guess. A lot of people I like are gone, but I've always loved reading John Frusciante's interviews, and I've always loved his playing. I would love to sit down with that guy once. That would be fun.
Yeah, great player, man. Really
he probably wouldn't want to. He probably wouldn't want to. He seems like he's a little bit reclusive and this and that, and is kind of in his own. But hey, I am too. But he would be a very interesting person to.
Dude, if I ever get him on the show, I will hook you guys up for sure.
Right. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Man.
Make a note of that. Let's see if I can get John on the show.
Oh, man, you're a good dude. I know you would too.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. I'm really good like that, as far as like, not that I'm a good guy. If I say something, it's like, I do what things I say, for sure. I like, that's one of those things I like about me. You don't have to execute a contract. I mean, I'm not that in business. I'm not prepared to. I always do. But, if I'm one of those guys, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I say I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to do it, which my kids learned at a very young age, which is good because, I like it, expectations, I guess,
Oh, right. It's good quality, man. Absolutely.
Desert Island Discs. Steve, if I asked you to pick your top 3 Desert Island disc, no particular order, and just for today, because it's the kind of thing that changes all the time.
Wow. Houses of the Holy, Zeppelin.
Oh, wow. Great record. What's your favorite track on there?
Oh, man. The first 3 are so great. Dancing Days comes to mind for some reason, too.
That's interesting.
Such a great track, and the way the guitars are arranged on that song, those little rising lines and stuff, and even the main lick, however he's getting that sound with that sort of glassy quality to it, man, there was something going on back in those days with those guys, man.
Yeah, well, the Page is just a genius,
And probably a common one a lot of people say, but Exile on Main Street,
Stones,
which Stones is not something I grew up with at all. That's more of a recent thing for me. I was one of those guys who kind of was ignorant and who gives a shit about the Stones, like a blues band. But then it's like, once you get it, it's kind of like,
listen to Mick Taylor years and
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And lately I've you said, okay, whatever's in your mind right now. I've gotten hip to Susie and the Banshees lately.
Sure.
Earlier, and they have a record called Juju. Who's that guy? I don't know how to say his name, but John McGough, who was in the band then, the guitar player. Man, there's some great shit on that record. That I keep going back and back to again, and I find it really inspiring. Yeah.
Cool, man. Some good selections there. So, you might have answered this already. So, what's the most important things you've learned about yourself through your career experience and life in general?
Yeah, I think to trust yourself and your process. I think it can be easy to think that your process is flawed, or because it seems simple and natural to you that there must be, it must need improving or something. But, you in general know what's best for you. And it can be easy to get away from that. But there's been times where I've just gone, well, what if I tried just doing this, even if it seems simple or ridiculous to someone else? And it's almost always had good results.
Yeah. It's about making yourself feel good with it,
Yeah. And kind of, it can be hard to trust that. I feel like to trust what feels good to you or feels right. I guess I just questioned a lot of that for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you don't, man. I'm glad you're doing that.
Thank you.
Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
The introvert thing, like we talked about.
Yeah.
I know when I mentioned.
Yeah, that is definitely hard to. I would imagine people would find that odd.
And I feel like people think you're looking for attention when you say it. I'm not.
No, I don't think so. Really? No, I don't think so.
Well, I feel like some people think that, or you're just saying that to try to be weird. That's bullshit. No, you're not.
No.
But to me, it explains so much stuff. And surprised to hear. I'm a baseball nut. I know some musicians like sports. Some other ones, so that maybe it's not the craziest thing in the world.
No, that's cool. That's a great answer.
And some days, like last night, I really get off on cooking.
What do you cook, man?
Last night was my specialty, salmon and Brussels sprouts.
There you go.
Sometimes it is the most healing, like meditative thing. And this is probably trite to say, but the parallels between cooking and recording music, I'm sure like anyone who cooks or, knows this, but it's amazing how many parallels there are between the two to me.
In what way?
Well, I feel like, like this,
right.
Like when you have this, I'm holding up my Junior here. If you put this through a good old amp, it's pretty hard to fuck it up.
Yes.
It's going to sound, if you can play at all, even if you can't, with a good microphone and a good microphone preamp and this and that, it's going to sound good pretty much no matter what. You go buy a good piece of fish, that's like a real good piece of fish, it's pretty hard, or any piece of meat.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to fuck it up if you start with something really good.
Yeah.
You can say that about gear, or you can even say that about a song, But if I go grab, and I don't want to name any companies or something, if I go grab some, overseas made guitar and I put it through some new thing that's like, does all this stuff, but is all circuit boards. And hey, there's great stuff there's great digital stuff as well. But it's interesting a lot of times how then you end up having to do all of this shit to it later to try to make it sound good. And I feel it's the same way if you grab some piece of meat that's been frozen for a year and all of a sudden you got to put all this shit on it and try to do something. It's kind of to me, a good reminder of like, try to start with the good shit, whether it's gear or song or anything like that. And then, or if you find yourself having to do all this stuff to it, maybe it wasn't great to start with or something, Yeah.
Totally. Hey, as far as biggest influences in your life, musically and personally, I'm assuming it'd be Kevin.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
How about personally? Who's been the biggest influence in your life?
I mean, boy, Kevin in a lot of ways too, because, when you grow up, no matter how good your parents, no matter how well they do, it's a bit of a weird thing that you end up listening and going to your friends.
Yeah, it is.
And Kevin's one of these guys I grew up with. And it's interesting. He's a guy that doesn't drink or do any drugs. He's a straight edge guy. I didn't drink any alcohol until I was in my early 20s, I don't think. Because I was like, well, he and his brother don't have to do it. So I'm not going to.
Oh, that's wild.
So, yeah, he's been a good influence in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
And I feel bad. He's not the only influence, but he's definitely one that comes to mind right now. Yeah.
Anything you're still interested in learning to do?
That's in the last couple of years, I've gotten more into, again, being open-minded or closed-minded. I definitely am into working out. And for years and years, I was just a going to the gym by myself, shut up, don't look at me kind of guy. For some reason, recently, I started going to some of the classes at my gym and going to some of these different classes where you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's kind of fun. Like I started going to spin class recently. I had no idea what I was doing.
That is really difficult.
It's difficult, but it's fun. It's been fun learning a little bit about that, and the instructor's telling you. So I'm kind of inspired lately to maybe start exploring some other things in that realm. What's mountain biking like? What's some things like that because like a lot of musicians, I've probably been guilty of the last 20 years of sitting in my place doing music and not doing other things. It's like, oh, there's a lot of shit out here like this, and I enjoy doing physical things. So yeah, there's some things like that lately I've been like, well, I wonder what rafting is like. I wonder what this and that is like. And I feel like the next bunch of years, I'd like to maybe check out some more stuff, which I guess probably a pretty common answer, but yeah.
No, it's not. Very few people work out in general, I think.
Well, I feel like in some ways and things of that, there's some things like that in life where I feel a bit like I'm playing catch up compared to some other people, but,
but that's the kind of thing you could start at any day. And it's like, great. There's never a downside to that. You get better every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so healthy for you, man. Especially like now, I'll be 55, as I hate to say that as it comes out of my mouth next month. But I see other guys and I work out and do this 30 years. And I see a lot of guys my age and I know my energy level is super high because of that. And I see people my age that are like I'll look on Facebook and I'll call my wife and I'll say, hey, babe, do I look that bad. She's like, no. And I know it's not because it's just because I've exercised and, you know, not that I don't look my age, but I do, but not as maybe as, you know, I get around much better. Thank God because of that, you know, because of the exercise stuff. It pays off in spades, man.
I'm glad to hear that. Cause not to sound like, you know, up on some level, but I feel like I didn't know that for a long time. And now that I know the difference of how I feel when I'm keeping up a routine of fitness, and I feel now like I'll never go back to a period where I don't for a long time because I know how it feels. And I feel bad. I feel so bad for people who don't know that. And I get it. I have a schedule that is way more conducive to that than people that work 9 to 5 or have kids. But man, like when people don't realize what it does for you, I feel bad because man, that's definitely, we've talked a little bit about mental stuff. That is definitely something that keeps me on the straight and narrow big time.
Oh my God. That's something like if I'm down and I haven't gone to the gym for the day, I know if I go there, I'll feel better.
It's unreal what it can do for you.
Yeah. It changed your life, man.
Yeah. It's literally like a drug. It's crazy. So I'm glad you know that. Definitely. Yeah,
man. Believe me. What's your favorite place you've traveled, man? You've been all over the place.
Well, I like warmer stuff. So I've been to Costa Rica a couple times. I love that. And then Newfoundland and the East Coast of Canada. Man, if you can go check out Newfoundland in Canada, that's
remote, isn't it?
It's the furthest east. Yeah. It's its own island. And man, you go there, and I don't mean this in any sort of negative way. The people, it's almost like you've stepped back into maybe what Canada was like in the 60s or something. Like it almost reminds me, I don't want to sound insulting, but almost like the Shire in the Lord of the Rings. Like it's sort of this like magical land where people are just much simpler and everybody plays guitar and music, and the people got this crazy accent, and it's beautiful, and there's like moose, and I don't know. It's just very, it's very unique place, and it's such a good vibe there. I've only been there when we've toured and done shows, but I would love to go spend a week or two there just hanging out. It's
that's cool.
Yeah. If you think that globalization has happened everywhere, and especially in the North America and stuff like that, go to Newfoundland. Like, yeah, it's still doing its own thing. It hasn't. Yeah.
Do you know that? I only know this because I've had e-commerce companies selling supplements. That's where they did the studies about fish oil.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because a large percentage of the diet in Newfoundland is like fatty seal, very whale blubber, fatty foods like that.
Cod,
and then, and then what's happened is they brought in, like, there's fast food there now, and the whole dynamic has shifted, and it's, you know, whereas you have the newer generation, they're all eating that stuff, and they're dying much younger because of it.
I'm sure. Yeah. Now they call it the Western diet.
Yeah. The Western diet. Absolutely. Yeah. That's funny, man. That's interesting.
Yeah. If you get a chance. Yeah. It's cool.
It must be freezing up there. No?
In the winter, probably. Yeah. Cause you're way out there, out east and stuff like that.
It's just so far north, man. You're right near the North Pole there. I mean, compared to Florida here, but I go to 60-degree weather. I'm freaking cold. So I'm a pussy. I've become a pussy with that since I'm living here, man. All right, man. Last question. And man, I can't thank you enough for your time and just for being so cool about everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this change has been deliberate or intentional, and how much is just, you know, changing from aging?
Yeah, because aging does play a part. I think, and it might be aging, but I would say biggest change is just that I truly appreciate and place importance on needing the balance in life. I really understand now how much you need all the other parts of life outside of work. People, my parents, my family, friends would say, hey man, you gotta make sure you do other things besides just work. And I was in one ear out the other. And then you start getting an inkling of, okay, have a couple experiences where you get burnt or something doesn't go your way and you realize, oh, I've been sitting here for a week straight doing nothing but thinking about this and working on this work thing. You have a couple experiences, and I'd say now it's come pretty full bore where, I'm almost on the front lines now going like, well, no, I'm not working today because I said I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go do that. And
good.
10 years ago, I think I was still quite in like, work is everything mode and everything comes secondary, and try to have relationships and stuff with that going is not so, and even just not even just relationships, just for your own personal well-being,
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
That is a big step.
Part of that might be aging too, yeah, now I'm almost like a, what's the word? Maybe almost
a vigilante.
Yeah. Too much on the other side where I'm like, screw you with your great session you want me to do. I'm not doing that today. It's Saturday.
Hey man, you got to enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Whatever that works for you,
I didn't mean that towards you.
No, I know. It's all good, man.
It's Saturday.
No. Oh, that's right. I didn't think of that. Hey man, thank you for everything. Honestly, this has been great. You're a hell of a sweet guy. And anytime if you drop any product, come on the show. Man, I wish there's something I can promote of yours. You're just so cool. Everybody come check out Our Lady Peace on the road. And if you're listening and you're looking to hire someone to do some TV work, hit up Steve for sure. He's a guy who's got great experience. And any final words of wisdom, man?
Oh, boy, on the spot like that. Boy, I don't force nothing.
Don't force nothing. I like that. Don't force nothing. Awesome. Don't try. Charles Bukowski. Don't try.
I see you got a Bukowski in the background.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love his writing, man. All right, man. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate everything, man. I hope to see you again.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, share it with a friend or on your social media channels. We appreciate your support and help with this. And thanks again to Steve Mazur for spending time with us. Go out and see Our Lady Peace on the road and support him and his projects. And make sure you go to the homepage of Everyone Loves Guitar, sign up to get on our newsletter list. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.